Here's my first look at the venue, the MGM Grand Arena. And from up in the balcony early in the morning, I must say it's quite impressive. Down here on the floor, we can already see things in motion, and here we can see the first of our audio equipment arriving at the dock. This is Lee Pepper. He's the sound designer of the entire event, and here he is pushing in our SAC rig. The lighting and staging obviously has gotten a jump on us, and they're on the move already. And this is a look at the power distro for the event, already set to go. And here you see Lee starting the setup of the SAC rig. This is a 64-channel in by 64-channel out SAC system. This event is rather large, requiring over 100 inputs, and we will be submixing down into stems from a Midas 4000 analog console. And as more equipment arrives, here you see our giant Midas monster sitting side by side to our little SAC rig. Realize that SAC system has more than 25 times the power of that Midas console. And as the day moves on and lighting and rigging and staging progress, it's time for us to start working on the line arrays. We're using a D&B J-rig for this event, and I'm very excited to see and hear the results. It's very interesting to observe just what it takes to assemble a rig like this, and we're very grateful to have the help of the experts from the sound company that are familiar with this rig. The curvature and the angles have been pre-calculated based on the size of the room, the positioning, and the coverage we're trying to obtain. Here you see the system hung about 70 feet up. And that height, by the way, was determined based on the video director's insistence on not seeing the line arrays in his video shots. So while perhaps a little higher than we would have liked, here you see the system in position, not spiked and focused yet. Okay, now that the speakers are hung, we turn our attention to setting up the monitor station backstage. Here we're going to keep the Midas console and the SAC system that's going to control front of house and all the monitor mixes backstage, so all connections remain backstage, saving us from having to run a 112 pair snake out to the front of house position. Now here you notice it takes 4 or 5 people to set this thing up, which is quite a contrast to what it takes to set up a small SAC rig. But I did choose the Midas for 2 reasons. 1, for its sound quality, and 2, because it's analog. And because I'm using the Midas system to submix 30 or 40 strings, woodwinds, horns, and so forth, and feeding that into the digital SAC system, I did not want to add extra latency into the loop. So here you start to see the monitor station begin to take shape. And here's a look at our 2 mic splitters that are feeding a video truck and audio recording truck. Here's our power distro set in position. And here is a look at our mic and utility cases. These were provided for us by the sound company hired for the job. And what a fun time it was opening these drawers and just seeing rows and rows of microphones and gadgets and things that we all love and wish that we could own for ourselves. It was quite an experience. Trust that virtually everything you see in these drawers ended up being pretty much used up by the time this event was finished. It was quite the experience. And of course, we can't forget about the cables. Here's a look at the massive amount of cabling necessary to pull this event off. Snakes, sub-snakes, snake boxes, input boxes. This was a 66-piece orchestra, over 100 inputs. It was quite intense. So let's take a look at how Monitor World is progressing. Here you see our famous Midas monster set behind me since I had no need to touch it during the show. It's our giant submix feeding this small SAC system, which is doing front of house and 7 stereo monitor mixes. And here's RF World, and things are looking pretty good. Okay, with Monitor World taking shape, Lee heads on out to the front of house mix position and begins the setup of the SAC remote station that will control front of house. Note that his entire front of house footprint is this 6-foot folding table with a few pieces of gear surrounding him. It's quite interesting. And while all this is taking place, I interact a little bit about SAC with Jay Klein, the Director of Operations at the arena.
Like the Midas, where like the digital Midas stuff, where it's got all the comps and gates and all that.
Comps and gates everywhere. It's got unlimited comps and gates times 25 consoles. You got to get that we're doing monitor mixes, not on an aux end. We're doing a monitor mix flipping onto a brand new console. So every performer up to 24 literally has his own console. So if we're doing a rock band, every performer has his own console. And what's more, he can use a little netbook, $300 netbook, on his music stand or on his keyboard and absolutely control the console. So it's not an Avion, it's an Avion on steroids, because you're not just getting 16 or 32 stems, you've got all 72 channels, EQ, comps, gates, reverb, aux sends, everything separate on your console. All the level
EQ
control, everything's back there.
Yeah,
this is just a remote control surface, basically.
System, yeah.
So that's what's really neat, because you eliminate that 300-foot big giant snake and all that stuff, and you're not surrounded out here with all the gear. All the heavy gear stays back there, or can. I mean, you can do it like an analog console out here if you want. I mean, if you're running a snake, it's not a problem. If you want, you can lock them. You can unlock them and lock them by the hit of a key, that kind of thing. So it's like on the fly, basically. It's not It's not designed this way.
If you had a podium mic, you could just lock it there and have it there no matter where you're at.
If you wanted to. Cool. And or you could always jump back from it if you needed to move this for a second to do, like some background vocal combinations, and then bam, put it back. Front of house is set. Stage and miking setup is underway. The next afternoon, we talk Behringers. Now, besides that, if you don't want to do that, great. Buy a rack of Neves. Buy a $2,000 Lucid converter, loop a little analog connector in there, and build a whole rack or a series of racks that cost you $150,000, and I don't really care. So if you got a snobby attitude about the Behringers, put Neves on there.
Yeah.
See, you can put anything you want on there. If you're really a snob, you could put Manleys on there at $10,000 a pop, and build a $5 million front end. I mean, it really doesn't matter. That's what we like about it. Okay, here we get a good look at the insanity that is our stage setup. We have over 100 mic lines run, most taped and hidden along chair legs and so forth. Here you see an inset of small D&B floor wedges that surround the piano for Michel himself. Here's one side of the side fill, there's one on the other side. And here are some inset shots of the small floor wedges for the vocal talent. And because the director did not want to see boom stands in the string section, all the strings had to be direct mic'd, which added considerably to our channel count. Okay, and the craziness begins. First day of full orchestra rehearsal, live mics, real instruments, Michel himself, and vocal stand-ins. Powers up, and Lee gets his first listen at front of house with real instruments after tuning and tweaking the room a day before. And as things get dialed in, we all stand back in amazement at the clarity and the quality of the sound of this orchestra in this huge arena. Another day, another rehearsal, and stars begin to arrive. Things get hectic for me in Monitor World as I chase that elusive, perfect monitor mix for each performer. Here's a closer look at the SAC setup for this event. This is Lee's front of house layout. Notice he's got a group of VCAs moved down into the middle of the console. I'm going to flip to my master monitor layout and notice it's completely different. And as I flip back and forth between the two, you can see that difference. We're both hooked into the same SAC host, but we have completely different layouts. My tap points for all the monitors are source pre-attenuator, meaning our signal pairs are completely independent. And here's a closer look at some of the star power involved in this event. And as I continue to sweep down through my master monitor mixer, you can get a sense of how the 60-some inputs are laid out. And mixing in this manner is a dream. Just clicking on a channel, popping up a fader. I never have to lean over a console or move anywhere. Everything comes to me. Also have different workspace views. Here's a wide mixer view giving me the full view of all controls for a particular channel. Here's a comparison view of multiple Zoom mixer channels. Another helpful feature was the ability to program an F key to jump me to an exact channel and/or mixer. Now there I programmed an F key to jump me to the start of the vocal section. Here I'm programming an F key to latch and jump me to the start of the harp and the orchestral section. Now by pressing a key, I can instantly flip to any spot on the console I need to get to quickly. Now here you see a list of the 7 stereo monitor mixes that I was handling, and switching between them is a snap. Now another great feature is this Master Chase Solo mode. This mode solos the master output of the current mixer you're on, and switching mixers chases the solo with you, so you're able to instantly monitor whatever mixer you switch to. Truly a great tool. Another great feature is the ability to load and run Sol Studio in the background on the same SAC host system, allowing us to record live performances in a multi-track fashion with no further cabling or hardware necessary. Now here you see how easy it is. I'm in Sol Studio. I simply create a new folder for the project. I jump into that folder, label and name the session, and I'm just about ready to go. At this point, the 2 programs are linked together, and jumping to my SAC Link options menu, you can see I have the ability to import the entire mix session with one click. All data, all labels, all assignments, all EQ, compression, and so forth comes into the Sol environment, and one control click on the first record button opens up all record meters properly labeled and assigned, ready to record. Now, I'm recording the source dry data, yet I have imported the EQ and compression settings so that I can turn around and get an instant playback of the same mix that I have in the SAC environment. Pressing the record button, and I'm now live recording, in this case, 60-some channels. Now we used this extensively during this event to record the rehearsals, so that when the orchestra left, Lee and I still had the ability to turn around and use those recordings as a virtual orchestra, allowing us to tweak some of the room balance and monitor balance. And note that the WAV files created were neatly labeled with the individual session and channel name, making it very easy to take these files from the folder and import them into any other DAW for editing and mixing if you decide not to use Sol Studio. So, after 5 intense days of setup and tweaking, the time has arrived. The venue is ready, the doors are open, the audience is entering the theater, and in just a few short minutes, the legend himself will take his seat at the piano and proceed to blow us away with his art. It's showtime.